They told me I was nothing until the general saluted me. The fluorescent lights of the regional headquarters had a specific hum. A sterile, biting energy that pressed against your skull if you sat under them too long. I sat at the far end of the mahogany table, my hands folded neatly over a plain manila folder. Across from me sat Miller, the regional director. A man who measured his worth by the thickness of his carpet and the sharpness of his suit. Next to him was Sarah from HR, who had spent the last 20 minutes practicing a look of corporate concern that never quite reached her cold, calculating eyes. Jordan, Miller began, his voice dripping with that manufactured, corporate empathy that feels more like an insult than a kindness. We've been reviewing the department's energy. The consensus among leadership is that you're, well, a liability to the culture. You're quiet. You don't engage in the brainstorming sessions. You seem detached. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I simply maintained eye contact. He saw a clerical hire who arrived too early and spoke too softly. He saw someone who didn't fight back when he took credit for my logistical reports. He interpreted my stillness as fear. He interpreted my silence as a lack of capacity. We need lions here, Jordan, Sarah chimed in, leaning forward with a smile that never reached her eyes. People who thrive in chaos. People with presence. She glanced at Miller, then back at me. Honestly, we're worried you just can't handle the stress of this environment. We're moving the termination paperwork to the final stage during the shareholders' summit next week. The casual cruelty of that comment, reducing my entire professional existence to how I looked standing in a lobby, was almost amusing. They told me I was nothing. A mere, clerical, ghost destined for the basement filing room. A body filling a chair until they could find someone better. But they didn't know that my detachment was actually high-level situational awareness. They didn't know that I had spent 8 years in regions where stress meant deciding which wire to cut while a heartbeat sensor counted down. Where brainstorming sessions meant coordinating extractions under hostile fire. Where culture fit meant being able to blend into a market in Kabul without being compromised. I didn't correct them. I let them fill in the blanks. Let them believe what they needed to believe. Let them think silence meant weakness, when in reality, it meant control. Because if you believe that true power doesn't need to announce itself, you're in the right place. The week leading up to the summit was a masterclass in dismissal. Miller treated me like a janitor with a laptop, tasking me with the grunt work he felt was beneath his pay grade. Coordinating motorcades. Vetting secure lines. Managing credentials for high-profile attendees. Background checks on catering staff. Security protocols for the building's north and south sectors. He dropped files on my desk without looking at me. Jordan, I need this done by end of day. Think you can handle it? His tone suggested he expected failure. Expected me to fumble. To prove his assessment correct. I'd nod. Yes, sir. And he'd walk away, satisfied that he'd put the weak link in their place. What Miller didn't realize was that he had just handed me the keys to the kingdom. By asking me to manage the logistics, he gave me complete access to every security protocol in the building. I knew every entry point. Every evacuation route. Every digital blind spot. Every camera angle. Every weak point in the perimeter. While he was obsessing over the lighting for his keynote speech, I was conducting threat assessments on every caterer and technician entering the facility. While Sarah was selecting her outfit for the summit, I was running background verification on the temp staff being brought in for the event. I moved through the halls like a ghost. I delivered Miller's coffee with the same silent efficiency I had once used to move through enemy compounds in Helmand province. He never noticed that I was scanning his computer screen every time I entered his office. Never noticed that his password, taped under his keyboard like an amateur, gave me access to files he thought were encrypted. I wasn't spying for malice. I was gathering intelligence. It was muscle memory, as automatic as breathing. 8 years in military intelligence doesn't just disappear because you put on business casual and work in a corporate tower. At the pre-event briefing, 3 days before the summit, Sarah laughed when she saw me checking the seating charts for the third time. Still obsessing over the small things, Jordan? That's why you'll always be clerical. The big players focus on strategy, not whether someone's name card is facing the right direction. Miller nodded in agreement. She's right. You need to think bigger. Stop getting lost in details that don't matter. I didn't tell her that the small things included a discrepancy in the background check of a new server assigned to the VIP lounge. I didn't tell her that my private encrypted device, hidden in my bag, had just pulsed with a priority alert from a restricted frequency. I didn't tell her that the name card I was adjusting gave me a clear sight line to the secondary exit, which was critical for evacuation protocol if the threat assessment I was running came back positive. I let her laugh. Let Miller nod his agreement. Let them feel superior. Because silence does something to people. It makes them loud in their own ignorance. It makes them confident in assessments they haven't earned the right to make. If you appreciate the strength it takes to stay silent while others boast, subscribe to Silent Rank now. Stay silent, and let them find out the hard way. I went back to my desk. Opened my laptop. Ran the server's credentials through a database that doesn't officially exist. The results came back flagged. The server, Marcus Chen, had a gap in his employment history. 6 months. No explanation. No references. And his last known address was registered to a shell company with ties to corporate espionage operations in the tech sector. I made a note. Flagged him in my system. Sent an encrypted message to a contact who would understand what it meant. Then I went back to arranging name cards. Because that's what Miller expected. That's what kept me invisible. That's what gave me the freedom to do the work that actually mattered. The following morning, Miller called me into his office. Not to ask my opinion. Not to acknowledge my work. But to criticize the font size on the event program. Jordan, this is unprofessional. The font is too small. Our investors are older. They need to be able to read without squinting. He tossed the program across his desk. It slid off the edge and landed at my feet. Fix it. And try to think about the audience for once instead of just going through the motions. I picked up the program. Yes, sir. I'll have it corrected within the hour. Good. And Jordan? He leaned back in his leather chair. This summit is your last chance to prove you belong here. If anything goes wrong, anything at all, that termination letter becomes official. Understood? Understood, sir. I left his office. Walked back to my desk. Adjusted the font size on the program by exactly 2 points. Sent it to print. And continued running background checks on every single person who would be in that building during the summit. Because while Miller was worried about font sizes, I was worried about the 3 flagged individuals whose credentials didn't match their cover stories. While he was obsessing over optics, I was calculating threat vectors and response times. That's the difference between someone who performs security theater and someone who actually keeps people safe. Miller wanted the appearance of control. I provided actual security. Sarah stopped by my desk that afternoon. Smiled her fake smile. Jordan, I just wanted to remind you that your termination paperwork will be finalized after the summit. I know that's difficult to hear, but I want you to know that this isn't personal. You're just not the right fit for our culture. I understand, I said. Good. I'm glad you're taking it well. Some people get emotional about these things. She patted my shoulder. The gesture was condescending. Performative. You'll land on your feet somewhere. Maybe something less demanding. Something more suited to your skill set. I didn't tell her that my skill set included advanced combat training, fluency in 3 languages, expertise in signals intelligence, and a security clearance that was higher than anyone else in the building. I didn't tell her that I'd coordinated operations that saved hundreds of lives. I didn't tell her that the less demanding work she imagined for me would bore me to death within a week. I just nodded. Thank you for letting me know. She walked away. Satisfied. Confident that she'd handled the difficult conversation with grace. And I went back to work. The real work. The work that mattered. By the end of the week, I had identified 5 potential security risks. 3 were corporate espionage operatives. 1 was a journalist using fake credentials to gain access. 1 was a disgruntled former employee who'd falsified their background check. I flagged all 5. Sent encrypted reports through channels that don't appear on any org chart. Made sure that contingency plans were in place. And I did it all while Miller and Sarah congratulated themselves on running a tight ship. The day of the summit arrived. The ballroom was a sea of expensive silk and ego. CEOs. Board members. Investors. Politicians. The kind of people who believe their net worth translates to intelligence. The kind of people who pay others to think for them, then take credit for the results. Miller was in his element. Shaking hands. Laughing too loud. Practicing his speech about dominating the market and crushing the competition. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. His confidence was the kind that comes from never being truly tested. I stood at the back of the room, near the HR table, where my termination letter sat in a neat folder. Waiting for the final signature at the end of the night. Waiting for Miller to make it official. To end my employment with the same casual cruelty he'd shown all week. Sarah had already mentioned it twice. Enjoy the summit, Jordan. It'll be your last one here. She'd smiled when she said it. Like it was a kindness. Like she was doing me a favor. I adjusted my position. Scanned the room. Counted exits. Identified security personnel. Noted the placements of cameras and blind spots. Watched the catering staff move through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. And then my device vibrated. A single pulse. Short. Urgent. The kind of alert that meant everything was about to change. I pulled it from my bag discreetly. Checked the screen. The message was brief, coded, sent from a frequency that only existed for people like me. Target Alpha in transit. Security breach detected in the North Sector. Verify and neutralize. My heart rate didn't spike. My breathing didn't change. 8 years of training doesn't allow for panic. Instead, I felt the shift. The transition from corporate employee to operative. It was seamless. Automatic. Like flipping a switch. I excused myself quietly. Walked over to Miller, who was talking to a group of investors. I need to check the perimeter for the seating charts, I said. My voice was calm. Steady. Exactly what he expected from the clerical hire who obsessed over details. He didn't even look at me. Didn't break his conversation. Just waved a hand dismissively. Fine, just don't get lost, Jordan. It's a big building for someone who struggles with complexity. The investors laughed. Miller smiled, pleased with himself. I walked away at a measured pace. The moment I cleared the ballroom doors, the clerical Jordan vanished. My posture tightened. My eyes became predatory. My movements gained the economy of a trained operative. I bypassed the building's standard security and patched into the local feed using credentials that don't appear on any official roster. Within 90 seconds, I had identified the threat. 3 operatives. Disguised as catering staff. Corporate espionage team. High level. Professional. They were aiming for the CEO's private server, located in a secure room on the north wing. If they succeeded, they'd walk out with billions in intellectual property. Trade secrets. Acquisition strategies. Technology patents that would cripple the company and hand competitors a decade of advantage. I moved through the service corridors. Silent. Efficient. The first operative was positioned outside the server room, acting as lookout. He was good. Alert. Scanning. But he was watching for security guards in uniforms. He wasn't watching for a woman in business casual who moved like smoke. I approached from his blind spot. Used a pressure point technique that shut down his consciousness in 4 seconds. He dropped. I caught him. Dragged him into a storage closet. Zip-tied his wrists. Gagged him. Moved on. The second operative was inside the server room. Working on the encryption. He was focused. Too focused. Didn't hear me enter. Didn't see me until my arm was around his throat, cutting off blood flow to his brain. He struggled. Clawed. Tried to reach for something, a weapon, a panic button. But I'd been trained by people who perfected this technique in places where failure meant death. He went limp. I secured him. Moved to the third operative. She was in the hallway. Moving toward an exit. Carrying a drive that glowed faintly in her palm. She'd already copied the data. Was making her escape. I intercepted her at the stairwell. Stop. She turned. Saw me. Her eyes calculated. Assessed. She was trained too. I could see it in her stance. In the way her weight shifted. In the way her hand moved toward her jacket. Don't, I said. She didn't listen. She lunged. Fast. Professional. A knife appeared in her hand, aimed at my throat. I redirected. Used her momentum. Twisted her wrist until the knife clattered to the floor. She countered with an elbow strike. Caught me in the ribs. It hurt. But pain is just information. I processed it. Adapted. Swept her legs. Put her on the ground. Applied a joint lock that made her scream. The drive, I said. She spat at me. Defiant. You don't know what you're protecting. I know exactly what I'm protecting. The drive. Now. She hesitated. Then reached into her jacket with her free hand. Pulled out the device. I took it. Released the pressure on her arm just enough to secure her with zip ties. Then I made one call. To a number that doesn't exist. That isn't listed in any directory. That connects to a network most people don't believe is real. Ghost 7 here. North sector neutralized. 3 hostiles secured. Data recovered. Clear the path for the general. The voice on the other end was calm. Professional. Copy, Ghost 7. General Thorne is en route. ETA 6 minutes. Hold position. I didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. I knew what the general meant. Knew what it meant that he was coming here. To this building. To this summit. It meant my cover was about to be blown. I returned to the ballroom. Smoothed my skirt. Adjusted my hair. Took my place at the back of the room, near the HR table, where my termination letter sat waiting. I didn't mention the 3 unconscious operatives secured in the service wing. Didn't mention the billions in intellectual property I had just saved. Didn't mention the knife wound that was currently bleeding through my blouse under my jacket. I remained the anchor. The silent discipline that kept their world from burning while they sipped champagne and congratulated themselves on their success. The summit reached its peak. Miller was on stage. Mid-speech. Talking about market domination and corporate excellence and the incredible team that made it all possible. A team that, according to him, didn't include me. And then the doors opened. The room went dead silent. General Marcus Thorne entered. 4-star general. One of the most respected military minds in the country. Decorated. Legendary. The kind of man whose presence changes the air pressure in a room. He wore his dress uniform. Ribbons covered his chest. 4 stars gleamed on his shoulders. His posture was perfect. His expression was controlled. But his eyes were scanning. Assessing. Looking for something. Looking for me. Miller scrambled off the stage. His face turning a desperate shade of red as he rushed to intercept the general. General Thorne. What an honor. I'm Miller, the regional director. We've been expecting you. Well, not expecting, but certainly hoping. We're so honored that you. The general didn't even look at Miller's outstretched hand. He scanned the room with a practiced, veteran gaze. His eyes stopped on me. Standing in the back. Next to an HR team holding my termination papers. The room watched in stunned silence as the general ignored the CEO. Ignored the elite. Ignored Miller's desperate attempts to shake his hand. And walked straight through the crowd toward the clerical hire. He stopped directly in front of me. The ballroom was silent. Hundreds of people watching. Whispering. Trying to understand what was happening. He didn't salute. That would be for the uniform. For active duty. But he lowered his head in a gesture of profound professional respect. The kind of gesture that, in military circles, means more than words ever could. "Ma'am," he said. His voice carried through the hushed ballroom. Clear. Authoritative. Respectful. "I was told you were out. Retired. Done with the life. But the report from the North Sector breach just hit my desk 30 seconds ago." He paused. "Let that information settle over the room. If you hadn't been here, if you hadn't been doing what you do best, the president would be having a very different conversation tonight. We owe you more than we can ever put on a ledger." The silence in the ballroom was absolute. I could hear Sarah's frantic breathing. I could see the moment Miller's jaw literally dropped. I could see the CEO, frozen mid-sip of champagne, staring at me like I'd just materialized from another dimension. The termination papers Sarah had been holding slipped from her fingers. Scattered across the marble floor like autumn leaves. They looked at me, the liability, the weak link, the clerical hire who couldn't handle stress, and saw a 4-star general treating me like a superior. Miller tried to step forward. His voice trembling. "Jordan. We didn't, there must be a misunderstanding about your role here. We were just saying how much we value your contributions. How integral you are to the team. How." I didn't let him finish. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't defend myself or correct the record or tell them about the 8 years I'd spent in military intelligence. About the operations in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria. About the classified missions that saved American lives. About the work I'd done in shadows while people like Miller took credit for spreadsheets. I reached into my bag. Pulled out my office keycard. The plastic card that opened doors and logged hours and marked my existence in their system. I placed it on the table next to Sarah's scattered files. The plastic made a sharp click against the wood. Final. Irreversible. "You were right about one thing, Miller," I said. My voice was as calm as a frozen lake. As controlled as it had been every single day I'd worked here. "I can't handle the stress. But it's not the stress of the job. It's not the stress of the work. It's the stress of having to pretend I'm as small as you need me to be." I turned. Walked toward the exit. The general fell into step beside me. His security detail materialized from the edges of the room. Clearing a path. Professional. Precise. The kind of coordination that comes from years of protecting high-value assets. I didn't look back at the room full of people who had spent months trying to diminish me. Looking back would suggest I cared about their opinion. That their assessment mattered. That their judgment had weight. It didn't. It never had. I walked through the glass doors and into the crisp afternoon air. The general walked beside me. Silent. Respectful. Understanding that sometimes, no words are necessary. "The offer still stands," he said finally. quietly. "We could use someone like you. Someone who understands that real work happens in silence." I smiled. "I appreciate that, sir. But I think I'm done with organizations that don't know what they have until it's too late." He nodded. "Fair enough. But if you change your mind, you know where to find us." "I do." He stopped at the curb. His car was waiting. Black. Unmarked. The kind of vehicle that doesn't officially exist. "For what it's worth, Ghost 7, you were one of the best. Still are." "Thank you, sir." He got in the car. The door closed. The vehicle pulled away. And I stood there, on the sidewalk, in the afternoon sun, feeling the weight of 8 years lift off my shoulders. I had spent my life in the shadows. In denied territory. In places where silence was survival and recognition meant compromise. And for a brief moment, the light had found me. The truth had come out. Not because I'd announced it. Not because I'd defended myself. Not because I'd corrected their assumptions. But because the work spoke for itself. I didn't correct them. I didn't explain. They found out on their own. Silence is the rank. Like and comment if you understand.
If you enjoyed the story, subscribe now for stories where silence outranks noise, and the truth always shows up eventually.